Hello and welcome to Right Sports Talk. My name is Zach. We have now made it through 15 weeks of the NFL season. It's getting real close to the end. We've only got a few weeks left. In week 15, I went 13-3 with my picks, giving me an overall record this season of 146-78. A little bit better than the week before. Now let's get into these picks for this week. Week 16 kicks off with an AFC West battle between the Denver Broncos, who are 9-5, taking on the Los Angeles Chargers, who are 8-6. The Denver Broncos coming off a victory over the Indianapolis Colts, and the LA Chargers coming off of a loss to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This game has some pretty big playoff implications, pretty much for seeding for both these teams. Right now, the Broncos are ahead of the Chargers with the 6th seed, with the Chargers losing this past weekend. Both these teams have very good defenses. Both these teams offensively are struggling to run the ball. The Chargers have really been struggling since J.K. Dobbins went down, and Gus Edwards has been okay, but not a great running back for them. And the Broncos, their run game kind of varies from week to week as to who the real hot hand is. Sometimes it's Javonte Williams. Sometimes it's Jaleel McLaughlin. For one or two games, it's been Audric Estime. But they've been very inconsistent with their rushing. Bo Nix was their leading rusher against the Colts. But I am going to pick the Denver Broncos in this game. I just think their defense is too good, especially since this Chargers team is struggling to run the ball. And I know Justin Herbert is a very talented quarterback, and the Chargers have a very talented receiver in Ladd McConkey. But other than him, Quentin Johnston is very inconsistent. Josh Palmer is inconsistent. Will Dissly is still banged up. I don't know if he's going to play. The Broncos, they might be without Patrick Surtain in this game, their best corner, because he is dealing with a bit of an ankle injury that he suffered against the Colts. But even so, this defense is very good. And Bo Nix plays well enough to get them to win them ball games. The other day against the Colts, he threw 3 interceptions, but he also threw 3 touchdowns and let them stay in the game and help them get the win. So I do think the Denver Broncos get the victory here on Thursday night. Next up, we have a couple of Saturday games. First up, for the first Saturday game, you have the Houston Texans, who are 9-5, taking on the Kansas City Chiefs, who are 13-1. I am going to go with the Texans in this game. This Kansas City Chiefs team is just beat up offensively. Patrick Mahomes suffered a ankle sprain this past week in their victory over the Cleveland Browns, and their offensive line is beat up as well. They had their left guard, Joe Thuney, playing left tackle for them, and although he is a very good offensive lineman, he's not a natural tackle. He is a guard, and I think if they have to shuffle around that offensive line, their tackle position is their weak point. And I think that for the Houston Texans, Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter should be able to get after the quarterback if it is Patrick Mahomes with his hurt ankle, or if it is Carson Wentz if Patrick Mahomes can't play this week. I think defensively, the Texans should be able to hold their own against this Kansas City Chiefs offense, with as banged up as they are. And this Houston Texans offense, CJ Stroud can still play very well. Nico Collins can play very well. Nico Collins scored a couple of touchdowns in their win over the Dolphins the other day for the Texans. Joe Mixon has been struggling a little bit against these tougher run defenses, but I think he can still play very well against this Chiefs team. I think just because of how banged up this Chiefs team is, and although this Texans team still has some question marks with their offensive line as well, but I do think the Texans can get the victory here over Kansas City. Your next Saturday game, you have an AFC North battle as the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are 10-4, take on the Baltimore Ravens, who are 9-5. The Steelers coming off of a loss to the Philadelphia Eagles this past week, and the Ravens coming off of a victory over the New York Giants, in which they were very dominant against a competition that they should have been dominant against. This game is a very hard one to pick. AFC, the AFC North especially is a hard division to pick because any team can beat any other team. The Steelers did already beat the Ravens earlier in the season, but I do think that the Ravens get the victory here in Baltimore. Lamar Jackson has been playing very well. If they get Derrick Henry the ball consistently, then I think they should be able to run the ball well against the Steelers defense, which may be without TJ Watt. He's a little banged up dealing with an injury. The Steelers offense hopefully should be able to get George Pickens back, but kind of shown without George Pickens, their offense is lacking a little bit in the receiving game. He is their real big deep threat, real big play receiver that they have. Najee Harris should be able to play well, although this Ravens defense is, kind of tough against the run. But I do think that the Ravens get the victory here, but I would not be surprised if the Steelers wound up pulling it out because it is the AFC North. But my official pick is the Baltimore Ravens for this game. Now, getting into Sunday, you have another AFC North battle as the Cleveland Browns, who are 3-11, take on the Cincinnati Bengals, who are 6-8. The Cleveland Browns coming off of a loss to the Kansas City Chiefs. The Cincinnati Bengals coming off a victory to the Tennessee Titans, in which there were 10 turnovers in that game between the Bengals and the Titans, but the Bengals found a way to get the win. The Bengals are still in playoff contention right now. Offensively, still playing very well. Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Chase Brown, every week play extremely well. T. Higgins had a good game against the Titans. And this Browns team is struggling. Nick Chubb suffered a broken foot against the Kansas City Chiefs, so he's going to be out. But, Jerome Ford is a very good running back for them. Jameis Winston, he had struggles as well. It's up in the air right now as whether or not he'll start against Cincinnati. So my pick for this game is going to be the Bengals. I just don't think the Browns can keep up with them offensively. And as much as the Bengals defense has been struggling this season, I think they should be able to play well against whoever the Browns have back there at quarterback, whether it is Jameis Winston or Dorian Thompson-Robinson. So I do think that the Bengals get the win here. Next up, you have the New York Giants, who are 2-12, taking on the Atlanta Falcons, who are 7-7. The Giants coming off of their loss to the Baltimore Ravens, and the Falcons coming off a victory over the Vegas Raiders. Honestly, this will probably be a very ugly football game. I think the Falcons get the win here, but it's going to be ugly. Their offense has just not been playing very well the past few weeks. Kirk Cousins hasn't thrown a touchdown in over a month. But this Giants team is just not very good at all. They wound up having to play Tim Boyle against the Ravens because Tommy DeVito went down with an injury. It's up in the air as to whether he'll play this week. Drew Lock is dealing with injuries. So, I think just based on the fact that the Falcons are the better, more stable team, not by much, and the Falcons are still competing for their division and have something to play for, I think the Falcons get the victory here. Next up, you have the Detroit Lions, who are 12-2, taking on the Chicago Bears, who are 4-10. The Lions coming off of a loss to the Buffalo Bills. The Bears coming off of a loss to the Minnesota Vikings. This Lions team is beat up. They lost another defensive lineman for the season. They lost Carlton Davis, one of their starting corners, with a broken jaw. David Montgomery, their 1A, 1B running back along with Jahmyr Gibbs. David Montgomery is suffered an MCL, I believe, tear, so he looks out for the rest of the year. But even with all their injuries, I do think the Detroit Lions can get the victory over the Chicago Bears. This offense, even without David Montgomery, can keep up with and outscore almost anybody in the NFL. Jahmyr Gibbs had a few games last year where he was the number one guy without Montgomery, and he played extremely well. I don't see any reason why he can't play well now. And this Bears team they're struggling. This is a divisional matchup, so it could be a little bit closer. These two teams played each other on Thanksgiving a few weeks ago, and the Bears did keep it close. But even with all the injuries, I think that the Lions are still a better team than the Bears, and I do think the Lions get the victory here. Next up, you have the Tennessee Titans, who are 3-11, taking on the Indianapolis Colts, who are 6-8. The Tennessee Titans coming off of a loss to the Cincinnati Bengals. The Indianapolis Colts coming off of a loss to the Denver Broncos. This is another game that I think will be a very ugly football game. I do think that the Colts get the victory here because the Titans, there's a lot of uncertainty around them. Will Levis got benched against the Bengals, so Mason Rudolph came in and played. So he might wind up being the starting quarterback against the Colts. This Colts team started off very well against the Denver Broncos and then just made some boneheaded plays offensively that allowed the Broncos to get back into and ultimately win the game. But I think if the Colts can just get the run game going with Jonathan Taylor, Anthony Richardson, still a very talented quarterback, just very inconsistent. Hopefully he can maybe get some stuff going with his legs. So I do think that the Indianapolis Colts get the victory here. Next up, you have the Los Angeles Rams, who are 8-6, taking on the New York Jets, who are 4-10. The Rams coming off of a victory over the 49ers last week, and the Jets coming off of a close victory over the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think the Rams get the victory here. They're offensively playing very well. Matthew Stafford can play well. They did struggle against the 49ers, but that was both a divisional game and in bad weather. So I think that they should be able to play better here. Puka Nacua continues to play very well, even in bad weather. Kyron Williams had a pretty good game, rushing for over 100 yards. And defensively, this Rams defensive line is playing very well with their two rookies in Jared Verse and Braden Fisk, and their other young player in Byron Young. So I think they should be able to get after Aaron Rodgers here, especially since that Jets offensive line is still not very good. They have been struggling. And this Jets defense is also struggling. They let Mac Jones almost beat them. Mac Jones scored like 25 points. So I think that the Rams can get the victory here against the Jets. Next up, you have the Philadelphia Eagles, who are 12-2, taking on the Washington Commanders, who are 9-5. The Eagles coming off a victory over the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Washington Commanders coming off of coming off of a victory to the New Orleans Saints. They almost lost. They allowed a touchdown with no time left and then ultimately stopped the Saints on a 2-point conversion to allow them to get the 1-point victory. And the Eagles have been just offensively looked very good. These two teams met earlier in this season, and this Eagles defense was able to shut down pretty much all game, able to shut down Terry McLaurin. Quinyon Mitchell only allowed him to have, I think, 1 or 2 catches. They were able to slow down Jaden Daniels in the pass game. I do think that the Philadelphia Eagles get the victory here. Again, Saquon Barkley is a little bit beat up, but this Eagles offense can still play very well even without him. Jalen Hurts is playing very well. A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith both had very good games against the Steelers. Kenneth Gainwell, the last time these two teams played, had a pretty good game with Saquon, alongside Saquon Barkley. And I just think that this Eagles offense will be able to out-physical this Washington Commanders defense and control the clock, kind of, grind the game down a little bit. And defensively, I think this Eagles defense can contain this Commanders passing game and not really let them get, anything going in the passing game. So I do think that the Eagles get the victory here. Next up, you have the Arizona Cardinals, who are 7-7, taking on the Carolina Panthers, who are 3-11. the Cardinals coming off of a victory over the New England Patriots. The Carolina Panthers coming off of a loss to the Dallas Cowboys. I think the Cardinals get the victory here. It's weird. As good as the Panthers looked against teams like the Chiefs and the Buccaneers, they just did not look. They did not show up against the Cowboys. The Cowboys, Rico Dowdle was able to run all over them, and CeeDee Lamb had a very good game. Cooper Rush looked like a very good quarterback against this Panthers defense. I think this Cardinals offense, James Conner should have no problem rushing the ball against this defense. Kyler Murray should also have a very good game. Hopefully Marvin Harrison can have a good game against this Panthers defense. And defensively, this Cardinals defense they're playing pretty well. And I think they should be able to play well against this Panthers offense. The Panthers, I just don't know what you're going to get from week to week. Like, if they look like they did against Kansas City and Tampa Bay, I think they can get the win. But if they look anything like they did last week, this is going to be a win for the Cardinals. And I just can't trust the Panthers right now, so I am going to pick the Cardinals to get the victory here. Next up, you have the Minnesota Vikings, who are 12-2, taking on the Seattle Seahawks, who are 8-6. The Vikings coming off a win over the Chicago Bears. The Seattle Seahawks coming off of a loss to the Green Bay Packers. In that game, Geno Smith went down with, I believe, a knee injury, and he didn't return to the game. So they had Sam Howell in. And I just want to take a minute and just give credit to Geno Smith for being able to get wins with this team. Because as much as they struggled before Geno Smith got injured in that game, they looked so much worse once Sam Howell had to play. So I am going to pick the Vikings in this game, whether it's Geno Smith or Sam Howell. I don't think this offense can really do enough against this Vikings defense. And defensively, I don't know if the Seahawks can shut down this Vikings offense, which has been very good as of late with Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison having good games, and Sam Darnold playing very well, and Aaron Jones running the ball very well. So I think that the Minnesota Vikings defensively should be able to slow down the Seahawks offense. Offensively, I don't see how the Seahawks slow down the Vikings, so I do think the Vikings get the victory here. Get a little bit closer to trying to get the division win. Next up, you have the New England Patriots, who are 3-11, taking on the Buffalo Bills, who are 11-3. The Patriots coming off of a loss to the Arizona Cardinals. The Bills coming off of a victory to the Detroit Lions. This isn't a real difficult one to pick. I think the Bills get the win here. I am a Patriots fan. I watched them play against the Cardinals, and it looked like there was a bunch of points in that game where it looked like they just gave up. There was plenty of times on defense where it looked like they could get a stop and looked like they gave very minimal effort to try and make a tackle. Cardinals wound up getting a first down. Offensively, although Drake May continues to play very well, they have no offensive firepower. I was looking at the Patriots roster. They have 5 active wide receivers on their active roster, and of those 5, Javon Baker was not active for the game against the Cardinals. So they had 4 active receivers against the Cardinals. So offensively, they're not good enough to keep up with this Bills offense. Defensively, this Bills offense might be able to score at will against them. I do know that last season, these two teams played each other very close. At the end of the season and early in the year, the Patriots did get a victory over them last year. But this Bills team is just playing too well as of late, so I do think that Buffalo gets the victory here. Next up, you have the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are 3-11, taking on the Las Vegas Raiders, who are 2-12. The Jaguars coming off of a victory to the coming off of a loss to the New York Jets this past week. The Raiders coming off of a loss to the Atlanta Falcons. The Raiders looked like they did not want to win the game against the Falcons. Looked like they were trying their hardest to lose that game, and the Falcons were making it hard for the Raiders to lose. But ultimately, the Raiders lost. The Raiders did lose another key piece on defense. Their best defensive player, Max Crosby, had season-ending ankle surgery, so he's out for the rest of the year. This Jaguars team, even with Mac Jones, has looked good offensively. So I do think the Jaguars get the victory here. I don't think the Raiders really want to win that badly. It looks like they may have to start Desmond Ridder at quarterback again. In the battle of backup quarterbacks and not very good teams, I do think that the Jacksonville Jaguars can pull out the win. Next up, you have the San Francisco 49ers, who are 6-8, taking on the Miami Dolphins, who are also 6-8. 49ers coming off of a loss to the LA Rams. The Miami Dolphins coming off of coming off of a loss to the Houston Texans. I do think the Dolphins get the victory here. This is another game that was kind of hard to pick, but the 49ers have been struggling as of late. With the exception of the Bears game where they looked very good because it was the Bears, they've kind of been struggling. Deebo Samuel has not been playing well on their offense. Isaac Guerendo, in the 2 games that he's played, has looked very good. And defensively, I don't know if they can keep up with the firepower that the Dolphins have, even without Jalen Waddle. Tyreek Hill, he did have a down game against the Texans, but he can still play very well. Johnny Smith, their tight end, can still play very well. Devon Achane can bust a game open at any point. So I do think that the Miami Dolphins will get the victory here, and the Niners might continue to struggle for the rest of the year. Next, on Sunday Night Football, you have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are 8-6, taking on the Dallas Cowboys, who are 6-8. The Buccaneers coming off a victory over the Los Angeles Chargers. The Cowboys coming off a victory over the Carolina Panthers. The Buccaneers started off a little bit slow against the Chargers, but ultimately, offensively, they found their footing. Mike Evans had a very good game. Baker Mayfield is playing very well. Defensively, they're still playing good defensive football. So I do think the Buccaneers get the victory here against the Cowboys. As good as this Cowboys offense has kind of looked the past few weeks, I think that may have been more to do with them playing against lower defensive competition. So I do think that the Buccaneers have good enough defense to slow down this Cowboys offense. I think the Buccaneers get the victory here. Last up on Monday Night Football, you have the New Orleans Saints, who are 5-9, taking on the Green Bay Packers, who are 10-4. I think the Green Bay Packers get the victory here. The Saints are beat up at quarterback. Spencer Rattler had to go in the game for them. Offensively, the Green Bay Packers are playing very well. Jordan Love is playing very well. Josh Jacobs continues to play very well. So I do think that the Green Bay Packers get the victory here. Let me know who you guys think in the comments. Down below who will win. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Until next time, see you.